Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance Channel's Romance Roundup, the #1 romance book recs talk show.
I love Romance Roundup.
I am Liz Donatello.
And I'm Libby Kay, author of the sweet romance series Buckeye Falls.
Libby and I are sharing must-add to your TBR list romance books, and we chat about Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. Watch Romance Roundup on Reader Seeks Romance Channel and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to Romance Roundup on PodBean and all podcast apps. Viewers and listeners can email us at readerseeksromance@yahoo.com. Hello, Libby.
Hello, Liz. I am so excited for today. Like literally, I have just been like vibrating with excitement. The books I'm talking about today are so good, and I can't wait to hear what you have to recommend.
I feel like this is going to be a very high energy episode because we're coming into it both with very enthusiastic book recommendations. Libby, let the roundup begin.
Giddy up, Liz. Here we go. So I'm starting with what I'm going to say, and I know it's only mid-April, is so far my favorite read of the year, and I think the bar is high. And that book is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone, which came out in February of this year from Dial Press. This was also my Book of the Month pick for those of you who are Book of the Month subscribers. This is a standalone romance, and it includes what is usually one of my least favorite tropes, and that is an accidental pregnancy. And I believe I mentioned this in a previous episode at the end of last year about books I was excited about, because Cara Bastone is one of my automatic buy authors. So when she came up on Book of the Month, I'm like, take my money, let's go. So in addition to it being a accidental pregnancy trope, it is friends to lovers. It is a delightful slow burn, and it is a true rom-com. The way she writes these everyday situations, both with pregnancy and just interactions in the world, are actual like laugh out loud moments. It really added a touch of humor to some, otherwise serious situations. So,
do we follow the pregnancy for the whole 9 months?
Yes, it is the whole shebang.
Okay, and the birth.
Yeah. And the birth. Yes.
Okay.
And that's the thing that surprises me, because I don't have children, and I'm happy for those who do. But this is something I did not think I would enjoy once I started it, because she really goes into detail, and she mentions it in the author's note that, this was something that she wanted to actually, give authenticity, and she really did. And it's through its first person. So It really just like you are in Eve, our main character's shoes, from start to finish. It is a single POV, which I know is not always the case these days. Usually it's dual point of view, but
yeah,
I think she did a good job by making it single point of view, because it was all her perspective for everything. So
wow. So this book really kind of goes against most of what you or I typically read.
Yes,
so this
exactly.
is a real testament to the author's writing expertise, that you were able to just buy into all of it.
Oh, all of it, 100%. I never once had a moment of like, I don't think I'm going to finish this. I was hooked from the beginning. And I think it's because she writes with such humor in realistic situations. She really just lays it all out there. And again, I obviously haven't gone through a pregnancy myself, but from my friends and family who have been pregnant, everything that was written seemed very authentic to me and their stories. And so I think that's, again, the fact that this is a trope that I usually avoid like the plague, and I could not put it down.
Me too, yeah.
Like hands down, like 5 stars to the moon and back. I love this book. The general premise of this book is we have Eve, who likes to have a plan with her life. She usually doesn't do anything out of the ordinary. But long story short, she ends up having a fling. She lives in New York City. She has a moment with a stranger. And after everything I just told you, we all know where this is going. She finds out that she is pregnant. So the thing that I really liked about this book, and again, it felt realistic to what happens in real life. Eve's best friend, Willa, is simultaneously struggling to get pregnant. So we have this dichotomy of childhood best friends. They move to the big city together. She is struggling to conceive while her friend just, goes out and has a one day uncharacteristic moment and winds up pregnant. Yeah. So that theme throughout the story, again, was done with such compassion and sentimentality, but it wasn't pandering, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So all this stuff is happening. Eve finds out she's pregnant. And at the same time, her best friend Willa's brother, Shep, is moving in with Willa because he just ended a long-term relationship. And this is someone she's known her whole life. It's just, it's Shep, it's the guy, it's your buddy. And he is there for Eve throughout the entire pregnancy. And I don't want to give away too much of the story, but the father of the baby, there's a lot of ups and downs. And I thought about saying more, but I really don't because it really adds to the story. But this is a friends to lovers because Shep and her, spoiler alert, it's a romance, I'm not spoiling anything, do wind up together. But the way that it's done, I never felt cheated. I never felt like it was, in poor taste. It always just felt like, of course, this is going to happen because the writing was so tight and the pacing was great. And there were no unnecessary scenes, if that makes sense. Everything that was written was going somewhere. And it was just so freaking good. I can't even I don't know. I cannot describe the writing. It is just, and everyone I've talked to about this book has loved it. I have not found anyone that hasn't read it and hasn't just devoured it in a day and a half and said it was amazing. So, I really will this is, we'll have to obviously check back in 8 months, but right now this is the front runner for the best book I've read in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a strong statement to make.
Yes.
In April.
Yes. Especially because the other books I'm about to talk about are also really freaking good. But, and I also have to say, if you are watching or listening and you haven't read any of her other books, specifically, she has a trilogy, the Forever Years trilogy. It came out a few years ago.
Okay.
Those are amazing. And they just look like these unassuming mass market paperbacks, but it's the same type of thing. The friendships on the page are authentic. It doesn't feel gimmicky. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, this person's only here because they get the next book. Everybody has a purpose. She has these tender moments. She has these funny moments. It's not overly steamy, but it is sexy. All of her books are that way.
Okay.
So, just again, I cannot say enough good things. People are probably going to think she's paying me to say this, but I don't know her. And if I did, I would give her a hug because I love her books so damn much. They're just so, so good. So Liz, stop what you're doing. Read this accidental pregnancy book and report back, please.
Wow. I might start with a non-accidental pregnancy book by Cara Bastone.
Yes.
And see, and that way I'm like, okay, I like her writing so much. Then I'll want to read the accidental pregnancy because that is, that's something I don't typically find interesting just based on my own life experiences. Also, I'm assuming there's a strong storyline about her and her friend, because the friend, I'm guessing, is going to maybe pull back from the main character because she's trying to get pregnant here. This one I would identify so much probably with the friend wanting to become pregnant and not being able to, that I don't know how it would sit with me, the whole story. I don't know.
And this is the hard part because I don't want to give anything away. But I don't know what to say because I went into it with that element. It's on the back of the book description, so you have an idea that something's going to happen with her friend.
Right.
But again, it didn't feel like it was some cheap pandering of sometimes you have trouble conceiving. It was
right.
I felt like it felt authentic and raw yet tender. But again, she adds humor that just lightens it just a little bit.
All right. Well, your excitement is palpable.
So yes, stop what you're doing and read Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. Hopefully you won't regret it. I didn't.
Yeah. Well, now that I've given out the show's email address, if someone does regret it, we'll hear about it.
We'll hear all about it in great detail.
I'll forward it right to you.
What is your first book of the day, Liz?
Well, I have selected a book that you previously mentioned on the show as wanting to read.
Ooh.
And so I read Love, Lies, and Cherry Pie by Jackie Lau and loved it.
Okay, please. I haven't started it yet, but it is on my nightstand and I'm ready to start it, but I just, life.
Right. I would suggest moving it up on your TBR. Love, Lies, and Cherry Pie by Jackie Lau will be published on May 7th, 2024. So right now you can pre-order it, by Atria Emily Bessler Books. And that's an imprint of Simon & Schuster. And interestingly enough, I originally, when I was given the arc by Gramercy Books in Columbus, Ohio, I was like, oh, I like Jackie Lau. I like the book cover. I originally thought it was about a baker because
Yes, I thought so too.
right, the main character is sitting on cherry pie, and I was like, oh, how many of these baking romance books can I read? But I loved the cover, and I enjoy Jackie's work, so I was like, okay, I'll grab it. And then when you came on the show and said you received an arc and
Mhm.
you talked about it, I was like, oh, she's not a baker. So that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read it. I usually don't read that many arcs, to be honest. So I was like, you know what? Let me read this arc. And I'm so glad that I did. It is a genuine rom-com, which I think should
Ooh.
be how we now distinguish actually funny rom-coms from, okay, there was some humor in it. So this is a genuine rom-com with touches of Pride and Prejudice, which,
Ooh.
yes. So here's the gist. It's about Emily Hung, a published author who's also a barista and a tutor, because being a published author, as you know, doesn't always pay all of the bills.
Correct.
And Emily is hounded by her matchmaking mother to get married. Mrs. Hung is currently obsessed with Emily going out with Mark Chan. Mark Chan is a serious minded, sweater vest wearing computer engineer from a good family. So, to put an end to her mother's constant scheming and nagging, Emily devises a plan, which Mark agrees to. Hey, let's just say we're dating and lie about our dating lives, and we'll just talk every now and again and get our story straight to tell our parents. So that's basically the agreement. So there's actually fake dating.
Fake dating. So we have an actual rom-com and fake dating.
Fake dating, because they're faking actually doing the fake dating. So
I absolutely love it. I love it.
which yes, I do too. I think it's a fun twist on fake dating. Now eventually it becomes necessary for them to real fake date.
I like the progression of this already.
Yes, yes. And of course romance blooms. So there's so much about Love Lies and Cherry Pie that I loved. It's a fake dating romance with mild fake dating angst, with very sexy moments. There's some fake dating where the stakes are very high. There's a lot of lying going around and covering, with different people knowing different things. And it becomes like high drama, but to the point of melodrama sometimes with the fake dating.
Yes.
And it just lasts for so long before the couple actually realizes, hey, let's make a real go of it. So what I liked is that there's a great balance that Jackie strikes between the exploration of Emily and Mark's fake dating to the real dating. So you do get a good amount of time with them actually dating, which I really, really enjoyed. So also Jackie Lau's depiction of Emily Hung's close-knit Chinese family is equally hilarious and
awesome.
So very heartwarming. And Emily's got these young nieces that are just brilliantly written. Jackie must have children in her life because it resonated as true. Me having young nieces and nephews, I was like, oh yeah, this is like, totally see all this playing out in real life. So that I really appreciate. I know that you're not like bowled over by children in a romance, as am I. Like, it takes a lot for me to really like a kid in a romance, whether their parents are involved in the romance or they're just side characters. And some of them annoy me. Some of them really annoy me.
Yes,
but
because they're almost too precocious and they don't act like children. They act like weird adults.
Yes, yes. The weird adult child sidekick supporting character, I do not like. Well, I adored these two of Emily's nieces in the story. Jackie Lau writes the book in an interesting manner. So
so?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. In the first half of Love Lies and Cherry Pie, the book is written from Emily's first person POV.
Okay.
then it alternates between Mark and Emily's first person POVs. So, because at first I was like, okay, this is just Emily, but I was totally enjoying it. Like I didn't mind it. And usually I don't care for first person, like that single point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I said, I'm loving this, but I'm wondering, is this going to be Emily the whole time? Just when I wonder it, there's the second part of the book. And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. And then the second part opens with Mark's POV, but it does alternate. So it's not just strictly then Mark. So it's so well executed that I was along for the ride, totally did not, that switch did not bother me. I felt like it was pretty seamless. And I felt so connected to Emily, which heightened obviously my investment in her romantic life, and it deepened that emotional payoff. I've read so many male-female romances with alternating POVs that don't seem to develop the female protagonist as much as the male protagonist. Now,
I think you're right on that.
Okay,
I think that I have noticed that a lot as well. I always say even in the last few years, that seems to be honestly half of what I read. I feel like we don't get that like gut-wrenching moment from the female point of view as often.
Okay, I'm glad that this resonates with you, because I started thinking, it's like, maybe it's just me that has picked up on this, or maybe I just gravitate to the male characters, but it does seem like there's a lot more backstory and development for the male protagonist in a male-female romance. And what I loved is that Emily got her due. Like, she was fully developed, but Mark was developed as well. So it's not like you felt like, oh, I don't know too much about Mark. But Emily is really, you really stick with Emily, and she's so beautifully developed. And there's a relationship that she has with her mom, Mrs. Hung, which is the secondary storyline, but also the catalyst for the romance. And it is beautifully wrapped up. It is a beautiful resolution to the story that I don't remember the last time I was so satisfied by an ending all the way around.
That's nice with the parental side, because sometimes I feel like the parents in romance books are almost like the children, where they're there for one little plot point, and then it's like, then the rest of the time, like, oh God, they're back again. So it's nice that was actually a worthwhile chunk of the story.
Oh yeah. Jackie did not miss a beat in Love Lies and Cherry Pie. Also, and this is something that as I was reading, I said, Libby has got to read this book. If you're a reader who is also a fiction writer, then Emily Hung will speak to your soul.
Oh, okay.
Because as a character, I have a very strong hunch that she represents Jackie Lau's experiences and kind of represents her thoughts on the publishing machine and the creative process, including the realistic struggles and the, career joys, highs and lows. So it was very meta at times. I was like, I think Jackie's actually speaking to us directly, but
maybe it's like her therapy.
I'm wondering, I would love to know what were the experiences that fueled some of these comments, these monologues that, internal monologues that Emily shares on the page. I was like, I think Jackie's been through some stuff. Definitely. She's been through some stuff. So I highly recommend that you pre-order or place a library hold on Love Lies and Cherry Pie by Jackie Lau.
And I will move that to the top of my TBR. Unfortunately, I have book club books to read, but to heck with book club, I'm going to read this first.
I actually read it over a weekend.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, and I kind of see, the problem with reading a lot of good books back to back to back is then I either go into a horrible slump, or I just have no life at all, and all I do is read. Not that that's a problem. I would rather just read all the time anyway. But
I hear what you're saying. I've actually been on a book reading high because I've been reading one after another that I was like, oh, wow, that was really good. And my concern is that if I read something that's good, but not, I feel like the bar is now high. Yes, and I feel like anything I read, in the future, very near future, might be really good, but it's not as good as what I've read. So I might be like not appreciating it as much. It's been a while since I've been like, I just want to keep reading this book. So it's been like that now, book after book.
That's awesome. Especially because I think you were having a slump about a month or so ago, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been kind of slumpy. I've been slumpy. So, Libby, tell me about the next title you're excited to share with us.
Well, speaking of arcs, this is actually an arc you gave me last fall. And because
right.
I am also bad at reading arcs, because I'm a total mood reader and I hate being told what to read, unless it's a book club book, then that's different.
Yeah, agreed.
But this is Friends Don't Fall in Love by Erin Hahn. This came out in October of 23 from St. Martin's Griffin. This is my first Erin Hahn, and it will not be my last. Friends Don't Fall in Love is obviously a friends to lovers. It's also kind of, I guess, a celebrity romance because they're both in the country music scene. So let me give you the general premise and then I'll just keep on rambling. So Lorelai Jones used to have it all, as most romance books start out. Yeah. She used to be a thriving country star, and she was engaged to one of the biggest superstars in country music as well. And then she decided to play a protest song at a concert and immediately got canceled. Her fiance dumped her unceremoniously, as they always do in these books.
Yeah.
And Lorelai decided to take a step back from celebrity. And she actually went back to being a school teacher, which I thought was interesting. There is a 5-year break from learning Lorelai's backstory to, the action of the book. Which again, I liked because usually, I don't know, 5 years seems like a long time. And it was nice though, because the way Lorelai describes, it's dual point of view. The way Lorelai describes her life as a teacher, I don't know, it just really added to it. It wasn't like, oh, geez, her boyfriend dumped her and 6 weeks later, everything worked out. I liked that it had that authentic feel that it took her 5 years to figure out her next step.
Are you able to share what she was protesting, or is that a major?
No, I will, because it's actually a trigger warning listed inside the book cover. She is protesting. There was another school shooting, and she was protesting school shootings and gun control.
Okay.
And so Erin Hahn does not go into detail on any of this, but there were several mentions throughout the book of gun violence and school shooting. And because Lorelai is a school teacher, that kind of fed into that storyline. So it's been 5 years. Lorelai decides she's going to make her come back to country music. And here comes our hero, who is Craig. And I kid you not, his middle name is Huckleberry Bozeman. I freaking love Craig. He might be, this is a 5-star read for me. This might be my favorite book boyfriend so far of 2024. He is so freaking sweet. And here's the thing I like about him, and this is going to sound funny, but hear me out. He is not described as this like Adonis male specimen. He's just a guy. He is a songwriter. He has his own studio, but he's not the star of the show. And he is just this delightful beta hero that just gets it done in more ways than one. It is sexy. It is sexier than you would think. The cover, I'm like, oh, it's cute. They're having a picnic. They have more than a picnic, Liz, and it's amazing.
Do they have picnic sex?
You know what? I don't think they had sex on a picnic, but all of the sex scenes are super hot.
Really? You would not get that from the book cover.
Exactly. No. And there's a motorcycle sex scene. Holy crap, Liz. It's so good. He has a motorcycle. I don't understand that. Yeah. No, I know. I spent a lot of time afterwards thinking of logistics and thinking, I don't think I would even feel comfortable.
Is he driving it?
No. It's not moving at the time. But, yeah. If there's any physicists paying attention to this episode, please let us know how this is possible.
Oh my God.
The physics alone are baffling.
His nickname isn't like Huck, is it? Because
it is. That's what she calls him. Yeah, that's what she calls him. And at first I'm like, oh, here we go. But the way, oh my God, I just freaking love Craig Huckleberry Bozeman. He was so cute. And just the way, okay, so, but the point is, she's coming back. He has always had a thing for her. And right after and again, I'm not giving anything, this is the beginning of the book. Right after she gets dumped by her ex, they have a one-night stand. And of course, they both are like, ooh, that was amazing, but it can never happen again. And we'll never talk about it. So they go all this time without really talking. So she's back in town. He agrees to help her with her new album. Obviously, sparks are going to fly. Shenanigans will ensue, including on a motorcycle. It gave me, and I think from my online sleuthing, I have a feeling this was loosely based on what happened with the Dixie Chicks back during GW's administration. There was just something about the way she described it. It was giving me those vibes. So I have a feeling from what I saw online that was probably her intent, was giving a happier ending to what happened to the Dixie Chicks, who I guess are now the Chicks. I think they're just the Chicks.
They're called the Chicks, yes.
So, but yeah, so It was a delightful read. And through my online sleuthing, I found out that the audiobook actually has the song that's called Jonesin, because her last name's Jones, that he writes, at the end of the audiobook. So I have it on hold from the library, and I want to listen to it when my hold comes up.
Oh my
because I want to know
goodness.
what it sounds like. So yeah, there's just something about this whole book. And again, not a country music fan. I wouldn't be able to tell you any country stars that aren't obvious. But the way that this Friends to Lovers was written, it felt authentic to their friendship. It was the type of Friends to Lovers that professionally it made more sense for them to not get involved if it was going to work out poorly. But they know these little things about the other one that other people don't know. And the way that Aaron Hahn like drops that in throughout the story, it's like, oh, only Huck knows that about her, or only Lorelai knows that about Huck. It was so good. It was a fast read. I read it in a day. It was absolutely delightful. You get the perfect mix of, and it is dual point of view. So you get to see both their perspectives.
Nice.
Just their impressions of the other person. Oh God, like I love that in books. Sometimes it bothers me, but I might have been in a better headspace. But I liked how the moments where, there was the miscommunication, because there's always miscommunication. It felt authentic, and it didn't feel like, I guess this is the part of the book where this happens. It was like, well, of course this is happening because these two idiots were not paying attention at this moment in time.
Right.
So it didn't feel so, like ho-hum.
It's interesting you say that, because that there's certain beats that writers want to hit, right? To make it to make it a well plotted, well rounded, well written romance. But you're right, in certain cases, even with, for instance, Friends to Lovers, you could almost hear the author hitting the beat and be like, okay, well, this is where they're supposed to now all of a sudden, not be friends anymore and be lovers. And it's like, but if it can happen organically where you don't even know where the beats are, I think like the writer should hit the beats, but we shouldn't know where they are.
Exactly. And that I think happens in this book.
Yeah.
And there is, no, I don't want to say anything because it'll give it away. But there was a part I did not see coming where, no, I can't say anything.
Don't say anything.
Because it was so well done. And it showed, even when they were going through a difficult moment, that they still were friends because they wouldn't let the other one suffer or struggle.
Okay.
So I have to say that felt authentic, because even in other Friends to Lovers, you read it and they're like, oh, you're my best friend in the whole world. And then they have their breakup or whatever. And then it's like, well, screw that person. No, that doesn't really happen here. And it felt authentic, because I'm like, you know what? Yeah. They're actually practicing what they preach. They're saying they're each other's best friends, and they're acting like
and
it.
They're going to see each other through.
Yeah. I mean, I think you will like it. I think it's cute. It's steamier than I expected. And I am now an Aaron Hahn fan.
I love it. So
yeah, that was Friends Don't Fall in Love by Aaron Hahn, out now.
I've noticed that the more I like a book and feel so emotionally connected to it, and I just loved it, it's sometimes harder to talk about it and describe what it is. And, I know a few times you were trying to find the words, and it felt like no words can actually do justice to how much I enjoyed or how much it resonated with me. So I feel as if we have to come up with a name for that. That way we could say, oh, this was a such and such read. That way everybody understands why we can't verbalize or accurately put into words how we feel. So we'll have to work.
It's almost like it needs to be its own trope, like the I don't know. Yeah.
Like I've in the past called it like a visceral a visceral read, like type of thing, because it's like you can't untangle all the emotions, the complicated emotions you have that's somehow connected with the book. So
yes. What do you have next for us, Liz?
I adored Aged to Perfection, Book 1 in Mary Farmer's Unlucky in Love series, published in March 2024. Aged to Perfection is a speculative romance with alternate Regency era history, a silver fox, a cursed castle, and cheese.
It's funny. When you said Age to Perfection, I first thought cheese. And then I thought men. And that basically is my life right there.
Men and cheese. So you really need to write a series with punny titles pertaining to like cheese and romance.
Oh, I should. Yeah. And it would be good research.
It would be fantastic research. The book cover features a woman dressed in Regency garb, and at a quick glance, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that looks like a typical Regency, book.
Yeah.
But if you look carefully, she's seductively holding out something, and it's a piece of cheese.
I was just going to say, it's a cheese. Is it a wheel of cheese?
It is not a whole wheel. It is a piece, and I love it because it captures Mary's trademark humor and charm, and I just love it. And yeah. So,
oh my gosh, I'm already excited. Please tell me more.
So first off, to explain very briefly, the alternate Regency era history part of this, which is really the speculative part of it. I say speculative because it's not necessarily historical romance, because it's not, it's an alternate history, but it does fall into speculative. In the early history of England, the country was broken down into kingdoms. It wasn't a unified country as we know it today, or even during the Regency era, it was known as England. It was united. So there's different kingdoms that have different rules pertaining to, most predominantly, women's freedom and women's rights. So there are some that are more progressive than others. So that's one aspect of this alternate history. Also, the U.S. colonies are still under British rule.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And for anyone who is not familiar, the Regency era is like the early 1800s, pretty much. So that's what we're dealing with. So right away, we're introduced to a Regency England that you haven't read before, but is still familiar in many ways, as far as the customs and the clothing and the speech and all that. So that's kind of that's what's going on in the setting. Here's the romance. Lord Cedric Godwin, who runs his family's cheese-making enterprise, is racing to become the first among his male relatives to marry, because the last to wed in his family will inherit the family's cursed castle.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Historically, tragedy befalls anyone directly connected to Godwin Castle. Actually, I'm not sure if Godwin Castle has a name. I'll just call it Godwin Castle. I read it a little while ago.
For our purposes, I think that will work.
Yes. So Cedric, who has experienced past relationship trauma, is totally uninterested in romance and courtship. He just doesn't want to be the last Godwin to get married. So he takes the path of least resistance, and he sets his mind to marrying his friend's unmarried sister, who runs a rival cheese-making business. And
oh my God, I love this so much.
So
cheese upon cheese.
So Lady Muriel is an educated Oxford society lady, and she enjoys freedoms women in other kingdoms don't have. So she is able to, run this business.
Yeah.
She is determined never to marry, because why would she? Cedric sets out to woo Lady Muriel, who is very resistant, but alas, is charmed by the older gentleman. And Libby, there is a wooing with a cheese tasting scene.
I was going to say, if he doesn't bring her cheese instead of a bouquet of flowers, I'm just ending this episode right now.
There's one thing I want to add about this cheese tasting scene, is that Lady Muriel is surprised and accompanied by her friends. So her friends get to kind of be wooed by him as well.
Oh, but that's kind of fun.
Yeah, which I really, really, really liked. I was like, you know what? To win someone's heart, you have to win over their family and their friends, right?
Yeah.
So there is this fabulous cheese tasting scene. Cedric also does some other things to woo Lady Muriel. But when Cedric and Muriel work together to help a young woman who seeks protection, their hearts melt for each other, because each has found their cheddar half.
Cheese.
Okay, I came up with that.
That is amazing, and you should have that put on their book cover. And I think you need to call the publisher immediately.
I do.
And I think I need cheddar half tattooed on my arm.
cheddar half, Now, to be honest, okay, I did find that pun somewhere, cheddar half, and I was like, oh, that would be perfect. But then I
It
had
is
to
perfect.
weave it into the sentence. So, uh,
You did it perfectly.
thank you. The melting part was my all made, like melting.
Yes.
Okay.
No, chef's kiss. Perfection.
Thank you. Age to Perfection is a fantastically unique, fun, and refreshing twist on a Regency romance. The humor and the banter are aces. Cedric and Muriel's rootability is super high. So I want to now, I don't think this is a thing. Every reader wants to root for the romance journey to end in an HEA. And I always was like, oh, you always say, oh, you root for that couple, root for that couple. Well, I'm going to call rootability. So their
Yeah.
rootability is very high. Like you totally want them to be together. There is a bit of high drama, which
Ooh,
harkens to the old school historical romances where there's a villain.
excellent.
Yes. But Mary writes it so compellingly without going off the rails, which is really important. It
Yeah,
doesn't go like
seriously.
crazy balls. So I highly recommend Age to Perfection by Mary Farmer.
And it is now I between that and the Cherry Pie book, I don't know what to read first.
You might want to hold off and read Age to Perfection closer to the release of book 2 in the Unlucky in Love series. Dropping the Ball comes out May 10th. Okay. And I have to tell you, you're going to want to read this. It is the story of one of the other Godwin male family members. His name is Alden. And
Again, because the Cursed Castle, I'm assuming, is still in play.
Yes. So all the books in this series are going to be all the different male relatives. So some of them are brothers, some of them are cousins,
Okay.
trying to not be the last to get married. So next is Alden, who I think might be the cousin of Cedric. And he is kind of an oddball nerd, it seems. He's into reptiles. Okay. And he carries around like lizards.
So
And
we're not having cheese, but we're having lizards.
right, not every book is cheese, apparently. Alden hires Muriel's friend, who's an event planner. Okay. He hires her.
Sorry, I'm just loving this already.
He hires her to help him throw a ball to find a wife. But to do so, she's got to like
Does she have
renovate.
to like get to know him a little to help him plan the perfect party?
Well, she gets to know him and his reptiles, but she has got to renovate his ballroom, which is currently being used as a giant terrarium.
I was just gonna say it's a terrarium, isn't it?
You knew where I was going.
I'm thoroughly intrigued.
Yeah.
I mean, you had me at cheese, but I'll stay for the lizards.
So, Libby, you've got some titles on your TBR that you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. And I have one that I actually read in literally like 4 hours because I don't know about you, Liz, or anyone listening and watching. Sometimes I just need something that is like super angsty just to get it out of my system. I usually don't gravitate towards high angst stuff. I don't like it because I have anxiety.
Yeah.
But this book has been all over Book Talk and Bookstagram recently, and it just came out. So what I'm about to ramble on about for a moment is To Catch a Firefly by Emmy Sanders. This came out in February of this year from her own imprint. It is a standalone sweet and spicy romance, and it is a childhood friends to lovers, and it ripped out my heart and put it back together. And it is one of those books, and my husband, I think, hates when I read books like this. Nothing existed. Like, I started reading this last night after we had dinner, and I just remember hearing him talking and thinking, oh God, he's still awake. And I just kept reading. And then I remember he was like, wow, that must be a really good book. And I'm like, he's still talking. And I'm like, yep, really good. Good night. And then the first thing I did this morning when I got up was finish reading it because I couldn't get out of my head.
Wow.
So this
Okay.
is, it was, like I said, literally 4 hours. I think it was about 300 pages tops. But it is childhood friends to lovers. It takes place in a nowhere town in Nebraska, which I don't think I've ever read a book that takes place in Nebraska that I remember. But it's a slow burn. I will say that the slowest of slow burns takes place about 15 years throughout their friendship relationship.
Okay.
The thing that makes it interesting is one of the main characters, Ellis, is neurodivergent, and he's not, he does speak, but he has trouble verbalizing things. So
Okay.
a lot of their, when they meet as children, Lucky, who is our other hero, he is this like outgoing, gregarious person with a lot of dreams, wants to travel. And then you have Ellis, who he doesn't really talk much. He's very bright, but just, he's fine living in their little Nebraska town. So I don't want to give away anything else that happens because it is just so freaking good. But I thought of it when I was working on my show notes, because it's one of those, like we just said, like, I just have so many feelings because it was so sweet and the payoff was wonderful. And I was like, freaking finally. And it was just very, like, wholesome is not the right. It was heartwarming, but it was tender, but there was some steam in the second half further than the second half. Cause like I said, slow burn.
Yeah.
But if you were looking for just a little bit of angst and a quick read, it is everywhere. Like a lot of the people I follow on Bookstagram have been posting about it. And so it was on sale and I'm like, oh, what the heck? Let's give it a whirl. Cause I have read a couple Emmy Sanders books before and I enjoyed them. And they did have that kind of angsty, she does childhood friends to lovers very well. Cause the other ones I've read were the same. And it is just so like, oh God, it's just so sweet. And oh no, that's all I'm going to say. It's just really, if you want like a quick friends to lovers angsty read, To Catch a Firefly by Emmy Sanders is really freaking good.
I'm so excited just from listening to you talk excitedly about all these books.
I'm so excited.
Again, I don't want to give any of this away because that's one of the parts of the story, but her descriptions of, I mean, even her descriptions of Nebraska. And I mean, we live in the Midwest. I'm aware of what corn looks like, but just the way she describes these towns, Ellis's hobby and how he shows love for Lucky because he's not verbal. Oh my God, it was so freaking good. And it was beautifully done. Like, oh, so good. So
is the hobby like whittling wood or making wood furniture? I feel like
same church, different pew.
Okay.
And and I don't want to say too much because I really don't want to give away I mean, I'm not, because it's the premise of the book.
Fine, that's fine.
Lucky is going to leave town for a little while. And so he shares his adventures with Ellis while he's traveling. And Ellis does something with this information that is just like so heart-wrenchingly beautiful.
Oh my God, I already feel like sentimental about it and I haven't even read it. Oh my God.
Well, I will, next time we see each other, I will bring it and you need to borrow it because it's so freaking good. Like, forget
all
it.
right.
Yeah, so that is my recommendation for a random read that I just could not talk about because I read it in 4 hours and ignored my poor husband. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
You also have something on your TBR?
Yes, I do. And I'm going to cough first. So this is one, I gave you my extra copy and I haven't started it yet, but I feel like the time is almost here. It is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This came out from Del Rey back in February. Again, I'm really highlighting the book of the month books today. So this one is a romantasy and it is a Viking romance, which honestly is why I ended up adding it to my cart. As you know, right now I'm going through my Vikings era because of Lucy Morris. I love her books. And when this came up, I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. This is the general premise from the back of the jacket. Freya is bound in an unwanted marriage and spends her days gutting fish and dreams of becoming a warrior. She also dreams of putting an axe in her boorish husband's back. If that's not a great opening description to a book, I don't know what is. Freya's dreams abruptly become a reality when her husband betrays her to the region's Jarl, which I hope is how you say that. Jarl, Jarl?
Jarl. It's a Jarl.
Okay, good. That's how I've been saying it in my head, so thank God. Landing her in a fight to the death against his son, Bjorn. To survive, Freya is forced to reveal her deepest secret. She possesses a drop of goddess blood, which makes her a shield maiden with magic capabilities that help her repel attacks. So it is foretold that this special magic will unite the fractured nation of Skaland beneath the one that controls this maiden's fate. So obviously there's some magical realism, fantasy elements to this. So believing that he's destined to rule as the king, the fanatical Jarl binds Freya in a blood oath and orders Bjorn to protect her from their enemies. So, spoiler alert, I have a feeling these two are going to get together.
Yeah, yes.
It is the first in a series. So this is a series. So we are going to be committing ourselves here.
Oh boy.
I have heard from friends and family who have already read it that it is a delightfully quick read, even though I think it's 400-ish pages. Um,
Yeah.
and these are people who are also not huge romanticy fans, because you know that is, I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone, trying to read more things that I usually don't read, and romanticy is one of them. So I am proposing that this is a future buddy read for late spring, early summer, because
Okay.
everyone's talking about it. The cover's gorgeous. And
Yeah, it is.
yeah, so I just feel like I'm going to read more Viking romance, and I'm taking you along with me, Liz.
I am there for that journey. I
Okay,
will
perfect.
I will start that with you. So, would you like to share why you wanted to discuss Fangirl Down on the show?
Yes. I wanted to discuss it because this was on my radar and my TBR anyway, because we all know that I'm a huge Tessa Bailey fan. But when we had Leslie from She Reads Romance Books on the show, that just solidified it, because she said, I believe, and I hope I'm not misquoting, I believe she said, and this was a month ago, that it was her favorite book of the year already.
He
And I
did
thought that
mention it.
was a
Yeah.
bold statement, because we were barely a month into the year. So,
Yes, very
yes,
bold statement.
it is a bold statement. And even though I'm a huge Tessa Bailey fan, there have been a few recently that have not been my favorites, but this book has all of the flair and charm and humor that I love about Tessa Bailey. And I feel like it needs to have a moment of celebration on the show, because it, to me, is the perfect example of why I love her books. And I know that we had slightly different opinions of the book, so I thought we could discuss briefly on the show.
Yes. The last book that I really loved by Tessa Bailey was Window Shopping, which was
Yes,
um
the Christmas one.
which was the Christmas one. Before that, I loved Fixer Up. Is that it?
Yes, that did you read the trilogy or just the first one in the trilogy?
To be honest, I really loved Fixer Up. I did not read the other books in the trilogy because I had heard from other people that they weren't as satisfying.
Interesting, because I loved that trilogy.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I would say about her catalog that are some of my favorites.
Didn't sound like it was worth my time to keep going. I was like, you know what? Fixer Up was really good. I'll stick with that. I read Window Shopping and actually interviewed Tessa Bailey on Reader Seeks Romance interview show. I did read for book club Secretly Yours, and I forget what
That was
duology that was part of.
Yeah. That just came out last year, and I also
Yeah.
forget the duology.
Yeah.
And see, and that to me, and again, it doesn't matter because we're not going to be trashing her career because it's Tessa Bailey,
Right.
was not a favorite of mine. I felt that
Yeah.
that was just, if that would have been any other author, I probably would not have read more of their books,
Yes.
which I know is a bold statement for Tessa Bailey, but
Yeah.
it did not have, to me, that was lacking the charm and the humor, and it just felt too, I don't know, it almost felt too silly, which I know is funny because it was supposed to be a rom-com.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
think that's a
obviously,
good way of putting it. It was very silly. It was not my jam. And I was like, don't know if I'm going to read any more Tessa Bailey, because maybe these books just aren't for someone of my age and in my station in life. I don't know. So
well, and we are basically in the again, same station here.
yes, we're basically in the same station. But at some point, I got off at the next stop and you kept going.
Yes.
Because
I already bought my ticket list. I got to see where this goes.
so when I read Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey, book one in, I think, another, duology.
Big Shot series.
Big
Big
Shots.
Shots.
It's
Yeah.
a sports romance series, and this one features golf. I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. So to your point, there were some genuinely sweet romantic gestures in this book that I thought were really well written and really well devised. Tessa is known for her ultra steamy sex scenes, and she definitely delivered in.
She did.
Yes, she definitely delivered. There is a scene. Let's just talk about it now. Everyone talks about the scene. There is a scene. What would you call it? Like, well, I guess the crude way of talking about it is she tossed his salad, but I believe it's called like anal rimming or something, or anal licking, where she licks.
I might die right now.
Yeah, she licks his,
Business. Yeah.
anal hole. But that's after he's been cleaned in a shower. So, I guess it's
And
all
I
good.
will say, this scene did nothing for me. I will say that.
Oh, it was It did nothing for me. And to be
It-
quite honest, I was reading that scene while I was in New York watching my 5-year-old niece, who was, we were both laying on the bed together. She was watching a movie, and I'm reading about this woman, Josephine is the character's name, licking Wells, the professional golfer's ass. And it did nothing for me. But here's the thing: I didn't think it was that horribly graphic. That I wasn't like
No.
vomiting over it. Like,
No.
I was like, oh, this is
It
disgusting.
wasn't graphic. It is just something, not to spoiler alert for my personal life, I would never do. I am not
Yeah.
shaming anyone who's into it. And I do believe, because of all the butt stuff she talks about in other books, Tessa Bailey obviously likes butts. And again,
He likes
judgment-free
butts.
zone.
And here's the other thing: throughout the book and in other books, she'll mention bubble butt. Okay.
Yes. Because
And
Window Shopper, I almost found that distracting.
I have to
That
be
is
honest,
not one of my favorites of hers, because I felt the way she kept talking about it, I felt like his ass was like the size of 4 buildings by the time she was done.
bubble butt conjures up images in my head of people I've known who referred to their butts as bubble butts, and I don't like having those images in my head. I also
Yeah.
think calling a man's backside a butt, B-U-T-T, I think is kind of immature. Bubble butt like just doesn't do anything for me. That scene didn't bother me. That scene, while it wasn't really what I enjoy reading, it was fine. It was okay. But there are some genuinely steamy scenes that were very enjoyable.
I don't want to give away the ending, but I thought the ending was very good.
So you mean the epilogue, or just how it ended?
I don't know if it was the epilogue or just the ending, but at the Masters.
Okay. Yes, I have to agree that the ending was wholly satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Wholly satisfying. I did not mean that as a pun. It was wholly satisfying. I thought the epilogue was very sweet. I have to say, if I could have taken, if you were to say, Liz, just based on the ending and the epilogue, what would you give it? I would have given it probably 5 stars. But there was so much that didn't work for me. Throughout most of the book, I found Wells to be too toxic of a man, even though there is a bit of an arc and a development in his character. I thought Josephine was, and this phrase has come up in my interviews with other authors, a chaos gremlin.
I will give you that. I will give you that.
She was very chaotic. Yeah.
I didn't like, and I don't think I'm going to give too much away, I didn't like how she approached her health and how she didn't prioritize. I mean, she did, but she didn't. And I thought that part I wasn't a huge fan of.
Right.
But the scene where he couldn't get a hold of her and he rushes because he thinks she's in trouble, I thought that was nice.
Yeah. I mean, it was sweet, but I also thought it was manic. I felt like his supposed need for her, because he refers to her many times as, I need her, I need her, I need you. I found his relationship to be that of an obsessive, more so. He came off so much more obsessive than romantic on the page. That's, to me, the bottom line.
Okay. And I will give you that. But because it's Tessa Bailey and I liked Fix Her Up and the Bellinger Sisters series, I feel like there's certain qualities to the other heroes that I liked in those books that I'm like, oh, but it's him, so it's okay. And again, toxic if it was a real person. I admit that fully. It's a shame you didn't want to read the Bellinger Sisters, because the epilogue at the second book of both the sisters in the future is the best, I will say on record, the best romance epilogue I've ever read in my life.
So I think we can agree that Tessa Bailey is really good at endings.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, the best part of this book was being introduced to each of their friends. So Josephine has a friend, Tallulah, who's a marine biologist, and she's been living, I don't know, in Antarctica or something.
I think it was Antarctica, yeah.
And Wells, the golfer, has a kind of a friendship with this surly, burly hockey player. So their story, the Au Pair Affair, I am very excited to read, comes out July 16th. By Avon.
Until July.
Well, maybe you can go on NetGalley and request an art.
That's true.
You know?
Oh, but then I'm going to feel pressure. I need to read it in my own time.
I truly cannot wait to read this. And if it does disappoint, I might not be back for more Tessa. So book 2, The Au Pair Affair, Tallulah is an out-of-work marine biologist, and Burgess is a hockey player and single dad the long and short of it is Burgess hires Tallulah to be his tween daughter's live-in nanny. Now, Tallulah is described as quirky, but I think that's more because of the profession she's in. Because I think she gives a lot of facts about penguins and different marine biology.
I get the impression
animals.
she's more passionate about her career than like the quirky, like I just fall down a lot character. You know what I mean? The clumsy quirky.
I
feel like this is more, she just really likes her job.
Yeah, I think Tallulah's on the right side of quirky as far as characterizations go. So I'm really excited. I love a grouchy, because he's kind of grouchy, Burgess. And he's a man of few words, or at least he was in Fangirl Down. So, I mean, we both love a good hockey player. I dig the whole tween dad thing because although that could go awry if it's too precocious of a tween, but I believe she was
enjoyable for the one chapter we saw her in Fangirl Down. I felt like that interaction. I mean, if it sold you that you want to read the Au Pair Affair, I feel like did. Yeah. I'm crossing my fingers that bodes well.
I do too. I'm a huge fan. Like Jane Eyre is one of my favorite books.
I love that book.
Jane Eyre is perfect. And it's the only book I've reread. And I love the whole watching the guy's kid and then living in the house. Governors. I love the whole governors trope. So I'm definitely looking forward to the Au Pair Affair, which is book 2 in Big Shots sports romance series by Tessa Bailey.
I'm going to hate it. You're going to love it. We're going to be here in 3 months talking about it.
I think that very well might happen.
Thank you for debating Fangirl Down. I've been waiting to do this since we read it.
Thank you. I feel as if, though, I might have come on a little strong. I actually wrote notes throughout the book in pencil because
they're going to be in blood.
No, I was so, I had so many thoughts and feelings. I had to get it down. And I'll be selling this annotated copy of Fangirl Down for $50.99. Email Liz Donatelli at Reader Seeks Romance at Yahoo.
Oh, man.
Watch Romance Roundup on Reader Seeks Romance channel and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to Romance Roundup on PodBean and all podcast apps. Thanks for joining us, romance readers.
Happy reading, everyone.